Hello, and welcome to Wicked Wednesdays, your podcast on relationships, the kinky kind, the poly kind, the every kind of relationships. I realize that usually I talk about matters of sex and sexuality, not as much as I am going to. I realize that I haven't done enough of that. So I'm going to be branching out and making sure I cover all the bases that I want to. But I did realize that a lot of what I talk about is relationship-based. And this episode especially is going to be that. Probably part of a series we're going to start on how to have successful relationships. A lot of stuff I've covered, talking about communication, one of my big C words. And this particular one is going to be about conflict resolution, which, no surprise, comes down to communication. But I'm going to give you some strategies and some things that you can work on to help you have happy, successful relationships. Before we get started this week, let me send a very special thank you to my Patreons. You guys are awesome and help keep this show running. If you would like to become a patron yourself, go to wickedfellow.com and you can find the link to all of my sites. The podcast is hosted there, and you can find, very importantly, that Patreon link. I really do appreciate it. You guys are awesome. I enjoy the calls I have with some of you, and I just like the community that we are building there, and I hope to make it better. So, conflict resolution. I've never been in a relationship that did not have some sort of conflict at some time. Regardless how happy that relationship was, regardless how well I meshed with that particular person, there's always conflict in a relationship. And hopefully, I can give you some tips and strategies on how to navigate that. This is not about winning arguments. I'm not interested in that. I'm sure that there are a lot of good ways to win arguments, whether you're right or wrong. Some people go to law school specifically for that reason. But this is about making a happy, successful relationship, dealing with inevitable conflicts, learning how to recognize, is this actually a conflict? Recognizing, is this a me problem or is this a you problem? And I know it is very easy for any sort of problem to come up in a relationship. Our first instinct is always, it's a you problem. You need to change the way you are living to satisfy me. Now, you know me. I'm a very dominant person. So obviously, my way is the best way. The way I want to do things is the way we're going to do things. That only works to an extent. It really only works to an extent, even in a 24/7 BDSM power exchange relationship, like I have with my partner. It's not that my partner isn't willing to do the things that I want her to do. Sometimes she is incapable of doing the things that I want her to do. So we can either go back and forth and constantly have it be a problem, or we find workarounds, we find solutions, we find compromises. That's the kind of thing that I'm going to be talking about today. And that first one is a crucial first step in understanding how to navigate conflicts, to understand the conflict itself. And that is understanding, is this a me problem? Is this a you problem? Take some very simple examples. You have a partner that just grabs the toothpaste like a gorilla and just squeezes it. Whereas I like to roll it up from the bottom, nice and neat. It bugs me when the toothpaste is all mangled and I have to flatten it out. So what's the solution? Well, I could convince my partner to not do that. I could convince them to roll it up from the bottom in the very neat way that I like it done. Or I can buy my own toothpaste, and your partner can have their own toothpaste. And then it's not your problem anymore. This is one of those things, and I know that's a very simple example of that, but it branches out extraordinarily. There are so many things that we feel like are somebody else's problem. It's actually our problem. It doesn't bother my partner to have a tube of toothpaste that looks like it's been squeezed by a gorilla. Doesn't bother her at all. It's not something she thinks about, not something she cares about. It's something that I care about, but I cannot offload my own personal problem onto her. She has to change her behavior. She has to change what she notices and what she cares about to make me happy. Why? There are definitely a lot of problems that cannot be solved by you buying your own tube of toothpaste. There are a lot of problems that can. So let's focus on the easy stuff, the low-hanging fruit first. I've got my own toothpaste. She's got her own toothpaste. The kids got their own toothpaste. then it's not my problem if the toothpaste isn't done exactly how I want it, right? Simple as that. It still kind of bugs me a little bit to see the toothpaste like that. But again, that's a me problem. That's something that I've got to deal with. I'm never going to convince my partner that that is not the way to use a tube of toothpaste. It's not something she needs to put her time, effort, and attention into. There are a lot of things in our relationship that I do demand that she work on so that we can come together and have compromise and have a happy relationship together. So I'm going to weed out anything I can that's low-hanging fruit. There's an easy solution. I've got my own toothpaste, and it's nice and neat. Done. This is one of those things where look around at the conflicts in your own personal relationship. How many of them are actually you problems, things that you can solve yourself so you're not continually asking your partner to change for you? That is a big issue in relationships. We frequently expect the other person to do the hard work for us. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary, and sometimes they need us to do the hard work for them. That's part of having a successful, happy relationship. You have to have that generosity of spirit to want to do things for your partner that make them happy. But there are some things that it's just the way you are. You've got a neat person, you've got a messy person. And I don't make the rules. That's just how relationships go. It is incredibly rare in my experience to have two neat people that live together. It always seems to be the odd couple. Super neat person, super messy person. Unless you're gay. I have known some gay couples that both of them were neat, but that's rare, even among gay couples, I think. I know there's a lot of women that are thinking, why can't I find a guy that knows how to pick up after himself? I'm tired of picking up after this guy. The answer is the guys are out there, but they're all in relationships with messy women. That's just how it works. I don't make the rules. Sorry. And I was having this conversation with one of my Patreons, and I realized that I don't think I've ever been in a relationship with a really neat, tidy person. I think there is just something about natural human attraction that it's almost impossible for two neat people to work together in a relationship. There must be some magnet, positive interaction there that pushes them apart. It's just how it is. So how do you deal with that? Well, as the neat person, you are constantly feeling like you have to convince the messy person to tidy up more. I get that. Having lived with a lot of messy people, there's this constant feeling of, I'm not your mother. I'm tired of picking up after you. I'm not your maid. I'm not your servant. I'm not your housekeeper. You have to do your fair share of picking up after yourself and keeping things neat. I totally get that. There are few people on earth that understand that as much as I do, believe me. This has been a continual thing in my life, in my relationships. But I've learned along the way that for someone that's kind of naturally messy, for someone that walks into a room and can sit down and be comfortable and the room is a mess, I don't think it is possible to beat into that person a sense of unease and irritability that I feel in a messy room. So that's what it comes down to. It really comes down to, is this a me problem? Is this a you problem? Is this a we problem? Is this something we need to work on together? For a lot of it, you've got to realize that if you walk into a room and it's messy and that makes you feel uncomfortable and you can't relax in that room until it's tidied up, like me, that's a me problem. And it sucks because a lot of the times what you're tidying up is not your mess. But once again, you're asking somebody else to feel some way that they don't feel. Now, consideration is a big thing in relationships. And yeah, I'm not telling you that if you're in a relationship with a messy person, it's now your responsibility to be their mom and clean up after them. That's not where I'm going with this. But you have to understand that they don't feel the way you do. They just don't. When they sit down in a messy room, they don't feel anxiety. They don't feel weird. They don't feel like they have to clean this room. So it's very hard for them. Sometimes they don't even see it. And this is something I've definitely experienced with my partners. And I'll walk them into a room and say, what's wrong with this picture? and they do not get it. They don't see it. It's not an experience for them. They look at a messy room and it's just a room. And I'll go around and clean it up and make it all neat and tidy the way I like it. They don't see that either. It's just a room to them. That may be more of an extreme example. I've definitely known messy people who want to be clean but have a very hard time fighting that entropy, fighting that fact that things naturally become disorganized and it takes extra effort to keep them organized. There are definitely people like that, but a lot of the people I've known who are messy, they just don't see it as mess. They just see it as the way things are, and it doesn't bother them. So it's very hard for them to walk into a room, see that it's messy, think to themselves, I don't see anything wrong with this, but I'm sure my partner wouldn't like this, so I'm going to try and clean up. That's hard. That's a big ask. So, since I don't want to be somebody's maid, since I don't want to be somebody's mom, since I don't want to have to pick up after them, how do we work together? How do I make them be a little bit more clean while understanding that if I want a super tidy room, it's going to be on me. I'm going to have to do it. So, I lived with a friend once, just a friend, and they had a really bad habit of leaving the stove on. We had a gas stove, so fire. And I could not figure out why they could not remember to turn the stove off. I'd come in the kitchen, the stove would be on. I'd turn it off. I'd come in the kitchen, the stove would be on. I'd turn it off. And I started getting super frustrated. I was like, why can't this person remember to turn the damn stove off? This is dangerous. There's a child in the house. We can't have a stove on like that. I was part of the problem, right? I was part of the problem because they didn't intentionally leave the stove on. They did their cooking. They left. In their mind, they thought, I'm sure I turned the stove off. And if they went into the kitchen later, after I had turned the stove off, it reinforced that, oh yeah, I remembered to turn it off because I was turning it off. And I realized one day that me turning it off was actually part of the problem. That whenever I found the stove on, I had to go get them. I had to get them from the other room, bring them into the kitchen and be, hey, you left the stove on again. Which is, it feels like kind of an assy thing to do, but it's super important, right? Because by not showing them, by not reminding them, by not showing them the problem, by me just taking care of the problem myself, they were never going to change their behavior because in their mind, the stove was off. The next time they came to the stove, it was off. Therefore, they turned it off the last time they used it. And it worked. It did not take very long of me going and knocking on their door and bringing them to the kitchen and saying, you left the stove on again. There's a little bit of embarrassment there. There's a little bit of they don't want to be nagged by me knocking on their door at all hours. But it worked, right? And the point of that is if you come into a messy room and you clean up your mess, you make sure that you're not leaving jackets and coats and whatever laying around. And then there's still your partner's mess to clean up. That is when you grab them and you say, hey, I need you to come with me to the living room. I need you to put this away and this away and this away and this away. Okay? I appreciate it. Thank you. And you might have to do that over and over and over. But I can tell you that those habits start to build when they come in. Instead of tossing their jacket on the couch, they start thinking to themselves, oh yeah, it bugs my partner when I do that. I'm just going to hang it up. And I know, again, you might feel like, why am I being this person's mom? Why do I have to parent this grown-ass person and teach them how to be a grown-ass adult? Remember that it doesn't bother them if their jacket is on the sofa. It doesn't bother them at all. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. It bothers you. So it's a you problem. You can come together, especially on shared spaces. Especially on shared spaces. You can come together and make a compromise. But just picking up after them, just taking their jacket and hanging it up, taking their jacket and hanging it up, they're not going to get it. They're not going to make that connection. They're going to wonder where the hell their jacket is the next time they go looking for it. So, yeah, sometimes you got to do it over and over. You got to bring them into the room with you and show them the things that bother you and work on that communication between the two of you. Work on that, hey, It bugs me when there's stuff all over the couch and I've got to clean the couch off just so I can sit down. That bothers me. And this is a shared space. So can we not do that? Can you put your stuff away? I'll put my stuff away. And then it's going to be great. Then there won't be a problem. That's a we solution to a me problem. Because again, remember, they don't care. It doesn't bother them. It bothers me. So we work on a way to fix it. Now there's other things that you're never going to get a messy partner to deal with, right? I like a super clean bathroom. Like I'm the guy that gets around the base of the toilet and cleans all the way around, makes everything look nice and neat. That's a me thing. I don't think my partner's ever cleaned a bathroom like that in her life. And I don't really expect her to because it does not bother her. It does not occur to her. The toilet's a toilet. It works just fine. And I'm not trying to embarrass my partner or anything. She is not by any means the only partner I've ever had that didn't clean behind the toilet. In fact, I've never had a partner who cleaned behind the toilet. That's a me thing. So I understand that, and I don't expect them to do it. I like a clean bathroom. I'll clean it myself, and it doesn't bother me that I'm cleaning up after them, right? Because it's my thing. It doesn't bother them. So again, I've used these as kind of base examples, simple examples, but hopefully you can see how these things cascade across your relationship. There are a lot of things that we come into conflict with each other about, and we have to decide, how do we come together? Is this my problem? Is this your problem? Is this my problem that you can help me with? Is this your problem that I can help you with? Is this a we problem that we need to come at together or we're not going to fix it? Bringing this a little bit into the BDSM realm, you might be thinking, but Wicked, you're the dom and Koch is the sub, and shouldn't she be the one cleaning behind the toilet? Sure, I could make her get down on her hands and knees with a scrub brush and show her how to do it and make her do it, and that might be part of a scene. That's not really our dynamic. And the thing is that me standing there making her do that takes the exact same amount of time, in fact, quite a bit more time, than me doing it myself, right? So I'm not saving any time. I'm not saving any effort. I'm not saving any labor. I'm making her do something that she really doesn't want to do. And she's doing it because it's something that only I care about. You know, again, that's not the kind of dom that I am. I really don't use my levers of power, which are very strong. I never use those for things that only benefit me. That's kind of against my code as a dom. There are a lot of things that Katja has changed for me because I've said, I'm your dom and we're doing it this way. I know that you would naturally do it this other way. We're not going to do it that other way. I'm in charge. This is the way we're doing it. But I do not do that across the entirety of our relationship. It would be exhausting for me. It would be exhausting for her. I would have to constantly follow her around and order her day in a way that I am not interested in doing. I want her to have a great deal of independence. I don't want to have to be overseeing somebody all day long. And remember, this is one of those things that if I walk into a room, I can point out all the things that are out of place and that I don't like and that make me uneasy. That's me and my problem. If I'm standing next to Katja and I say, what's wrong with this room? Nothing. She will not find anything wrong with it. So that means I'd have to stand there and say, fix that pillow, move that couch, do this, put that away, put this away. And that isn't super fun for me as a dom. Again, I have to deal with her limitations and I got to deal with my own problems. So we talked about shared spaces, a living room. That is for the whole family. That's for the kid, that's for us, that's for the dogs, that's for everybody. That's a shared space. There has to be special rules for shared spaces. When it comes to private spaces, your own room, your own office, etc., that's one of those things that you have to learn to let go if you are in a partnership with someone. Again, I like things very neat and tidy and organized and put away, and my partner's not like that. So her desk is a giant mess, and my desk is super neat and organized, and I take things off it, and I dust it, and I put everything back on. This is some OCD stuff. And I know that people often say, oh, I'm OCD, I have this. And I know that actual OCD is much more of a life impediment. So it's not really OCD that I'm like that, but that's a good way of explaining my own thing. If I'm sitting at a desk and it's cluttered and there's dust on it, it bugs me to the point of distraction. Therefore, I have to fix it. That's just how I work. My partner's not like that. So her desk is a giant mess, in my opinion. But for her, it's fine. It doesn't bother her. It doesn't impede her work. It doesn't make her uneasy to sit there. Now, what happens is, occasionally, I'll go in and I'll clean her whole office. I'll put everything away. I'll organize everything. I'll do the floors. I'll do the desk. I'll do the whole thing because I want to, because it makes me happy, because I like to walk by and go, oh, that is a nice, neat, tidy room. But I don't insist that she keep her office that way because it doesn't bother her. And if I did insist on doing that, I'd have to be there every single day, making her clean up stuff that doesn't even appear to her as a problem, right? That is precisely what I'm talking about when I say, is this a me problem? Is this a you problem? Her messy desk is a me problem. Any more than I wouldn't expect her to come clean my desk because it makes me happy to have my desk clean, right? I'm not going to make her clean her desk because it makes me happy. That is out of line, even in a 24/7 power exchange relationship. That's the way I do it. You might have different ideas. And I am specifically trying to frame these relationship advice podcasts, both for the kinky folks, but also just general everybody. This benefits everybody. It benefits you at your workplace. It benefits you with your friends. It benefits you with your intimate partners. It might benefit you with your parents. Parents, it might benefit you with your kids. You do have to understand that your way, your likes, your desire, your irritations, things that bug you, those things may not bug your kids, your friends, your parents, your partner. And if you offload your problems onto them, then you are actually the problem. And you have to understand that, especially if you're one of those type A driven, dominant people like me. It took me a long time. It took me a very long time to understand this basic thing, that a lot of the things that annoyed me about my partners, a lot of things that annoyed me about my friends, etc., were actually my problems. They were things that bugged me, but not them. And if I realize that, hey, let it go. It's not my problem. It's their thing. It's their room. It's their desk, whatever. We don't have to see eye to eye on this. Now, the kitchen, where we share this space, yeah, we're going to have to work together because I like an empty sink and my partner doesn't care. Dishes pile up forever. So how do we make this work? Simple rule. At the end of the day, the sink has to be clean and empty. That's for me. Does that mean that a lot of the times I'm the one that does that? Yep. But, and this is absolutely in my partner's credit, she has gotten so much better about not leaving piles of dishes. That's a compromise. It doesn't bother her. If the sink is full of dishes, she can walk by it and go to bed, and it does not keep her up at night. It bugs me extremely. So this is one of those things that we've come to a compromise. At the end of the day, there's no dishes in the sink. It's empty, it's clean, everything's put away. That makes me happy. That's something that I've instilled in her as kind of a routine. That's a rule in our household. Hey, at the end of the day, if you've got dishes in the sink, those have to be done and put away before bed. That is a hard and fast rule. We're trying to impart that, to the kid that lives with us. It's slow going, but we're going to get there someday. These are things that, again, it's a me problem, but it's a shared space. So now it's a we problem because it's not my job to clean everybody's dishes all the time. That's not cool. That's not how conscientious, considerate partners live together. I never signed on to be a maid, and Katja knows that. So we have come to an agreement on, hey, you got to do dishes. And sometimes, yeah, do I just do it? Absolutely, because it doesn't bother me. I don't mind doing the dishes. I don't mind cleaning up. I don't mind the kitchen being super spotlessly clean because I cleaned it up. I do mind if after I've cleaned the kitchen, everyone else comes through and leaves it in a mess. So this is just like the stove problem. I could clean it all up again and be angry and frustrated, and the next day it's a mess again. Or I go to my partner and I say, hey, these are your dishes on the counter. I need you to clean those and put them away. It bothers me when you leave them here. And sometimes you got to do that a dozen times, 20 times, 25 times. But I'm not telling you that it's now your job to be your partner's maid. It's not your job to be your partner's mother. It's not your job to be your partner's father, whatever your relationship is. But if it's a problem you have, if it makes you uncomfortable and makes you unhappy, you got to come to them and say, these are your dishes, and it bothers me when you leave them here. I don't want to have to clean them, so I need you to clean these dishes for me. That's how you make it work. So I've definitely gone over that point. My camera shut off there for a little bit, so there might be a still frame over that last minute or two. But, I'm using some household examples, some basic, very easy to explain examples. But think about conflicts you've had with your partners and really think about them. Think about, was this actually a problem that they had, or was this a problem you had? This is a fundamental thing you need to understand about conflict resolution. Is there actually a conflict? How many times do we make mountains out of molehills? How many times do we create problems when there's a super easy, simple solution, which is recognizing this isn't a problem the other person needs to deal with. This is a me problem. I need to take responsibility for this thing. And I need to realize the things that bother me, the things that bother them, are not going to be the same all the time. I know that a lot of people get stuck in relationships where these are actual problems. You've expressed to your partner that it really makes you feel uneasy and anxious and full of anxiety when the sink is full of dishes. You wish they would help you with the dishes, and they just don't. I've absolutely had relationships like that, usually more roommate situations. And I know that we've all seemed to have that roommate that thinks that the sink is just a repository for dirty dishes, and then you throw them all away and buy new ones, I guess. I've had that situation, and no amount of communication solved that. No amount of telling them, hey, man, this is ridiculous. I can't use the sink because of all your dirty dishes. And I clean my dishes, so those are all yours. Are you ever going to clean these dishes? And they just kind of shrug. That is a fairly untenable situation, honestly, in a partnership. In a roommate situation, yeah, it's maybe time to find a new roommate. Maybe it's time to find your own place. In a partnership situation, if this person is your spouse or your significant other, this can be something that starts as a small problem and becomes this huge issue, because every time you go to the kitchen, there's their dirty dishes that you have to clean up. And that, them not even trying to meet you in the middle, them not even trying to work with you, them not trying to put in their fair share, that's a sign that there's more problems in that relationship, that they don't have that compassion and that consideration for you. And that's a really bad thing. That's something that is indicative of deeper problems in a relationship. So yeah, I can't tell you that there's a simple, easy solution for all your relationship conflict problems. Sometimes you're in a relationship where the dishes in the sink are just a signal, a signature, a sign of a much deeper issue, which is they just don't care. They don't care about how their actions make you feel. So that's not a problem I have with Katja. She knows that it bugs me on these things, and she does try very hard to meet me in the middle. I don't expect her to ever get to the point of housekeeping that I have as kind of a natural thing. It doesn't bother her. She has to be reminded. She has to consciously think about it. But she's come so far towards helping me with that. And I have not always been nearly as patient as I should be. And I know that's a me problem again. I tend to get very impatient when, I feel like I've told you this 10 times. How many times do I have to tell you? And I've got to remind myself, when she walks into the kitchen, she doesn't see the mess. So yeah, I'm going to have to keep telling her. but she's doing a great job and she does care. So there's the key. It's not a fundamental problem in our relationship because there is concern for my well-being. There is consideration for me. She just needs some help along the way, and I'm happy to do that. There are other things where you might just have to change your division of labor. You might just have to decide, all right, I'm going to do the dishes. That's going to be my job. It bothers me, doesn't bother them. I'm going to do all the dishes. What are they going to do to offset that labor? Because in any household, it is completely unfair for one person to do all the housekeeping and the other person to not. Just don't care, throw their stuff around, expect you to be their maid. You can usually find things that are easy for them. You can find things that work for them. You can find things that are tasks that are more suited to their personality or what they do or what they like, etc. There are some things that you may have to decide. You know what? I'm the one that cleans the baseboards because I'm the one who cares about the baseboards being dirty. Nobody else in the house cares. Therefore, I can't offload that problem onto everybody else. That's a me thing. I got to deal with it. I'm going to own it. And I'm going to clean the baseboards. And I'm going to be happy and satisfied when they're clean. And when I walk by, there ain't no dust on the baseboards because for some strange reason, that bothers me. It's not going to bother my partner. I don't think my partner knows that baseboards can be cleaned. Therefore, whose problem is it? Something I've found that works really well in these situations is we do things together. That is a big incentive, and it can make something that's normally not that fun, doing the dishes, cleaning the kitchen, etc., turn that into a shared activity. I want you to come help me clean the kitchen. I want you to do this. I'm going to wash the dishes. I want you to put them all away. I'm going to mop the floor. I want you to go through these cabinets, put all the Tupperware together, all that stuff. Divide up that labor. Do it together as a shared activity. It's not as effective to say, I'm tired of cleaning the kitchen. I want you to go clean the kitchen. May not be something they're good at, may not be something that bothers them. And the whole time they're cleaning the kitchen, they're like, this is pointless. I'm going to be taking these Tupperware apart tomorrow, etc. Again, if it's a you thing, if it bothers you that the Tupperware is not organized neatly in little stacks, you can't offload that on your partner. So do it together. Make it a shared activity. Make it a time you spend together. You can talk, you can listen to music, you can put an audiobook on. Make it a fun time that you can spend together doing something that makes you both happy. And then, remember, there's two people in this relationship. Are you doing stuff with them that makes them happy? Are you doing stuff that supports them, makes them feel good? Are you always asking them to do stuff, or are you doing stuff with them that they enjoy because you want to be supportive and helpful and a good partner to them? You know, again, I definitely fall into this trap of I feel like I'm in charge, I'm the boss, I've got to do all this stuff, and I frequently forget to make sure that I've got time and make sure that my partner feels like I'm also supporting them. I'm also doing stuff that they like to do that may be not my kind of thing to do. But it's important to carve out that time to do things for them, especially when I'm asking them to do things for me. That's just good relationship stuff, right? So, take these examples of household chores, and these have all been household examples because they're very easy and neat to tie up in a little bow and say, here's the solution. But interpersonal problems often fall along these same lines. Think about problems you've had in your relationships and think about how maybe you're offloading your own problems onto your partner. I've got a good classic example for you. And again, I try not to fall into gender stereotypes and traps. I know a lot of people, and I know that not all women are girly and like pink things, and not all men like Mack trucks and all that. I do realize that. But I also know that in relationships, there definitely tend to be stereotypical problems that I see over and over again. So one of those is women will often talk to their partner and they get frustrated and annoyed because woman comes home and talks to her partner and says, I've got this problem at work and this person's bugging me. And the guy comes in and he wants to fix things because that's what guys do. We fix stuff. And they may not want a solution. They may not want to be fixed. They may not want you to offer solutions and suggestions and, well, have you tried this? Or you should just tell them to go F off, etc. What they want is someone to listen with them, to commiserate with them, to hear their problem. They may not be looking for a solution. And, I definitely had to learn this as a guy because I'm a guy. I fix stuff. You come to me with a problem, I'm going to fix it. And I had to learn that a lot of the times they don't want someone to fix this problem. And so I've learned to ask. I've learned to ask my partner when they come to me with a problem, hey, do you want me to commiserate with you and listen to this problem and say, yeah, I can't believe that person did that? Or do you want me to offer solutions? It's just that simple. It really is that simple. You might have to have that conversation with your partner. If it annoys you that whenever you come to your partner and you want commiseration and they start giving you suggestions and that makes you frustrated, do they know that? Do they understand that what you're looking for is a sympathetic ear and someone to say, yeah, I can't believe they did that. What a jerk. If you need that, if that's what you want, you got to communicate that. You can't always expect your partner to understand that fundamentally, that you don't want solutions. You don't want them to ask you, well, have you tried this? You need to communicate that with them. How many times have I come down to relationship problems being caused by lack of communication and solved by good communication? Guys out there or people that have that tendency to want to fix stuff, make sure that that's what the person talking to you actually needs and wants. Maybe they just want someone to talk to and go over their problem with, talk it out loud, kind of feel, they may say, do you feel like I was in the wrong? And you can say, well, yeah, I feel like you were overreacting to this. Or no, I don't feel like you were overreacting. I think this person was being a jerk. Be that sympathetic ear sometime. This is one of those things where it's a small thing, it's a simple thing, but the way that we communicate with each other, the expectations we have with each other, can often be at cross purposes. And unless we understand what our partner needs, we can often not meet their needs in the most well-meaning way possible. My partner came to me with this problem and I gave her a good solution and she got mad at me. Maybe she didn't come to you for a solution. That might be the problem. That's a you thing. So that's a good foundation on trying to identify, is there actually a conflict? Is this a me problem, you problem, we problem? Sort those things out. Sometimes you really have to examine where this tension, anxiety, stress is coming from. And way too often, we let our own personal problems become we problems in an unfair way. So examine that for a little bit. Talk to your partner. Communicate with them. Be very open and honest with how you're feeling. And don't expect them to read minds. Don't expect them to just know that there's a problem. That's really unfair. No matter how close you guys are, in fact, often the closer we are to somebody, the easier it is to be blind to stuff like that. We're very comfortable. We have a relationship. Things work this way. You may not even realize that something you're doing is driving your partner crazy, and they're just expecting you to know that. They're expecting you to somehow infer that it really bothers them when you do this thing, and they're not telling you. And I got to tell you, that's a huge problem people have with expecting people to be mind readers, both men and women. You got to communicate. You got to be able to say, okay, this is a problem that I have and I need you to help me with it. Let's figure out a solution because I'm going crazy with this and it really bothers me and it's making me unhappy. Help me figure this out. That's just basic 101, how to have a good relationship. Understand me problem, you problem, we problem. Work on the we problems. Solve your own problems. Maybe help your partner solve their problems too. That's a good way to make it work. All right, folks. I'm going to continue this. There's a lot of other areas on conflict resolution that I want to talk about, different strategies, different ways of making it work, different kinds of problems. This was just one aspect of this whole idea of conflict resolution within a relationship. Thank you very much for spending some time with me. As always, you can find me at wickedfellow.com. If you want to become a patron and help support this show, the link is on my website. A note on Patreon. The messaging service on Patreon is just broken, and I don't know why it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and I found this to be a huge issue, both with me receiving messages and my messages not being received by my patrons. I don't know why it doesn't work. It's a very big, very wealthy company that can't seem to have a messaging app that functions. So, if you've reached out to me on Patreon and you've never heard back, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. And I do check it regularly. Recently, I had a patron reach out to me on Patreon, and the message was just not there. I checked, wasn't there. And a few days later, checked again, and it was there, but it was dated several days before. And no amount of refreshing makes it work. And it doesn't seem to matter whether I do it on my desktop or mobile or whatever. So I'm very sorry that that platform doesn't work very well for communication. Instagram is much better. If you reach out to me on Instagram, I'm much more likely to get that. If you email me, I'm going to get that as well. And that's wickedfellow.com. There's an email link there. My business email is hiswickedways@gmail.com. hiswickedways@gmail.com. That's the same email address. It'll go to the same place. I do get those. I get Instagram. For some reason, I don't get my Patreon messages, at least not in a timely fashion. And that makes me feel awful because I care very much about my patrons. You guys are very supportive and you guys help this show go. So of all the messages I don't want to miss, I really don't want to miss the ones from my patrons. So I'm sorry about that. I wish it worked better. I don't know what's wrong with it. That's just the way it is. So yeah, be a little patient with me. If I don't get back to you on Patreon, reach out on Instagram, reach out to my email. We have found a way around that. I've ended up giving my personal cell number to some of my patrons because there's been such a problem with Patreon not doing messaging. So fix your site, guys. Come on, fix your site. Make the messaging work right. Sorry, little rant. I'm very frustrated with that right now. I don't understand why they can't get a functioning messaging service. And I found that I'm not the only creator that has a problem with them. Apparently, this is just a thing that messages on Patreon go into some ether void and pop up whenever they feel like it. It's weird. As always, folks, consent is king. Take very good care of each other. And hopefully, I will see you next week.